This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
You are listening to Lucha Afterground.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lucha Afterground, the premier Lucha Underground after show on the web. My name is Max, and with me, as always, is nobody. I am flying solo for this week's episode. Travis did a great job last week with our with friend of the show, Robert Bobby Z. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they, after that love fest, they packed up and they ran off together. It was so much positivity going around. It actually warmed my heart to hear the voice of Bobby C for the first time. It actually made me realize that I have some strange thing, being Canadian, that when before I ever meet or hear an American speak, I just automatically assume they're going to have a Southern accent for some reason. I have no idea why. But as all of you who live in the United States know, that is definitely not the case. Not the case. Anyway, so this is going to be a bit of an interesting episode because it's just me, and we're going to go through this week's episode. Also going to go through all of our regular business here. So let's start us off with some news and notes. So the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported recently that we can expect to see Johnny Mundo and Taya on the latest Global Force Wrestling tapings. Not exactly sure how that works. If they are under the same Lucha Underground contract as all of the other talent, then shouldn't that mean they aren't able to be on televised wrestling shows for like 7 years? I mean, I know that recently it was revealed that Ricochet was only under a 3-year contract, but I would have assumed that Johnny Mundo and Taya were under those longer contracts, the same as everybody else. Maybe that 7-year contract was all just hearsay. You know, we in the wrestling fandom world, we take a lot of stuff that we hear word of mouth as truth. It's sort of is it an epidemic? Is it an epidemic? No, I wouldn't say it's an epidemic. I mean, some people have built careers on it. Absolute careers on it. Look at all these different wrestling sites. How much of that is really truth and how much of it is just rumor? I'm not sure. I often wonder. Could I just start a new wrestling website and just fill it with total lies? Probably. Write that down. Other news and notes. Lucha Underground merch available at Walmart suddenly. Great for them. Not sure how, but that's great. You know, with New Japan getting their stuff into Hot Topic recently, and now Lucha Underground getting their stuff into Walmart. I wonder if WWE is beginning to get nervous when they hear stuff like that. I certainly would. I think that's a pretty good indication. Well, it's an indication of two things. One, indication of sort of modern commerce and how drop shipping and things like that work. Maybe it's just easier today than it is 20 years ago to get your product into Walmart. I've never tried. Maybe I could get some Max Mitchell branded mouse pads in Walmart. Maybe it'd only take 25 minutes. I'm not sure. But it also talks a little bit about how fractured internet has made wrestling fandom, I think, right? Previous to the big streaming explosion, I think everybody was focused on just what was available on their televisions, but more and more and more people are reaching out and trying to find other things to watch, especially when WWE is giving them every excuse to do so. Also, we got Lucha Underground is going to be broadcasting in India soon, capitalizing on the big sudden thirst for wrestling content over in India. I don't know if you've had a chance to see those videos of those kids in the Indian. Those kids, there must be preteens, and they're recreating famous WWE matches in an alley in like Mumbai. They're pretty great. But if you've heard any interviews recently with the modern day Maharaja, you'll know that that wrestling in India is at a fever pitch. I guess they haven't quite clued into kayfabe yet, so they're still in that magical sort of space where it all seems real. So it's great that Lucha Underground can get involved with that. Also want to give a big shout out to Brian Cage. Man, put on a fantastic match recently in Noah. Highly rated by Meltzer himself. A very rare feat. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 4.5-star match. So definitely seek that out. I've seen the match myself. I believe it was against Nakajima. Huge underrated performer in pro wrestling Noah. Noah used to be this. It's just fallen out of fashion recently due to some questionable booking. But man, they absolutely have some talent, and it's great to see Brian Cage over in Japan and doing some more interesting stuff. That real like strong style, in-ring psychology heavy wrestling that you guys know, longtime listeners will know, that is absolutely my bag. And I love to see Lucha Underground talent over there taking part in that type of stuff. Other than that, what else can I tell you? Man, big news and note. I guess I got married recently. That was pretty exciting. Wish I had some kind of wrestling thing that would take place during the reception, but you know what? Wrestling rings are just too big. They take up too much real estate. You can't just have like one match in the middle of a party. It requires too much setup, too much takedown. It was a shame. But we did have a one small Lucha Afterground cameo in it. We made these what my wife keeps talking about is escort cards. I've never heard that before, but it's basically when people would come in, they would get a card with their name on it, and on the front of the card would have some character, something from pop culture that we really liked, and it would tell them where they would need to go, where their seat was for the wedding. And so we had your typical stuff, characters from movies, characters from TV shows. I had Jushin Thunder Liger on there, but the only Lucha Underground related thing was a photograph of superfan Bobby C. You heard his voice last week. We made a special card just for Travis's wife with Bobby C's face on it. And I think you can see a picture of that on Twitter if you want to check it out. Other than that, man, news and notes. I think that's about it. So let's just get right into this week's episode.
Most importantly, violence!
Actually, you know what? Before we go into Lucha Underground episode 32, I do just want to touch base on a couple of things that happened in 31. As you know, I wasn't here. And but there's one thing in particular, two things in particular that I think are important and noteworthy. The first is in the scene with Joey Ryan and Dario. When Joey Ryan is talking about Veneno, Dario has that amazing reaction. You will notice, it's important that I had to point this out. I couldn't let it go by. When Dario sits back at his desk and he starts thinking about that mask versus mask match, he starts doing with his fingers that classic itsy bitsy spider nursery rhyme. You know what I'm talking about? The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Go back and look at that and you'll see it's very subtle, but it is one of those things that just makes Dario on a whole other level than what you would see in terms of acting and performance in these wrestling programs. Also, I want to zero in on a very, very specific sequence that took place in the Pentagon Mill match. And this seems like nothing, but I'm going to walk you through it. There's a point at in the middle of the match where Mill misses a tackle and ends up firing himself out of the ring. Without thinking, he turns around and tries to climb back in. Makes total sense. Pentagon is on the inside of the ring, and he sees it all happening. He walked without getting out of the ring, just boots Mill in the chest through the ropes. Now that sends Mill backwards staggering, and without missing a beat, Pentagon hits the ropes, and then which leads to a running high spot over the ropes and onto Mill. The reason why I find this so noteworthy is that every single action that took place made total logical sense, and it resulted in the perfect setup for a high spot over the ropes. How many times are we watching wrestling where there are guys that gather on the outside and they're just standing there anticipating the move that's going to come flying over the match, flying over the ropes at them. And they're bracing themselves. They're not moving out of the way. By doing that sequence of moves, it all made so much sense. And it didn't lead to any of that illogical standing around and waiting. So hats off to Mill and Pentagon for that. I think that any wrestlers who are out there who find that there's constantly on the outside waiting around, my God, look at the way these two guys have set that up and just emulate it. We gotta get rid of all the standing around. Anyways, Lucha Underground, episode 32. The whole thing kicks off with the Veneno mask versus mask match, and I gotta say, I was, when this was announced in the previous episode, I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled. I was giggling. It was the type of thing that I never thought we would come back to, the sexy star Veneno, moment where she accused him of being the person who was putting down all those spiders, whom, by the way, it has never been revealed who that was. Are we supposed to believe that was Veneno? Is that what I'm supposed to believe now? I don't think so. I hope not. So what I was anticipating here, it was such a clever move by the Dario character to put them in a mask versus mask match because it would seem natural. And of course, what's going to happen is what you would expect to happen is you have these high stakes, right, for Veneno, because now Veneno has to fight. He has to rise above his current sort of level and defeat Sexy Star in order to remain anonymous, in order to continue for there to be those question marks. And so what I was expecting going into this was going to be this really interesting high stakes match between a lower undercard guy and a mid tier. I hate to say that, mid tier. I mean, I know she was a former champion, but a mid tier, a middle card performer. But with how often do you see stuff? How often do you see matches between performers at those particular levels within a promotion that have stakes that are so dramatically high? And it just seemed like one of those perfect things that this is what makes Lucha Underground special. We can have this type of match. It has all these implications. And then, and so, I mean, I hate to say it, but I cannot help but be supremely disappointed in how this match played out. I understand that we have limited time in an episode for sure, but the fact that this match ended so abruptly and without Sexy Star being involved at all, and with Joey Ryan just coming in and yanking the mask off, it undercuts all of the potential of what this match could have been, but it also leads me to wonder, why did this match even happen in the first place? Because if you think back, you've got Joey Ryan comes to Dario, says, hey, Veneno is Officer Reyes. And Dario says, okay, well, we'll have this match and then we'll find out. And then Joey Ryan, instead of having the match happen, he just demasks him. So my question would be, why wouldn't Joey Ryan just demask him? Why even go to Dario? Why not beat him up, hit him with a chair from behind, take the mask off, drag him into Dario's office? Or why does Dario even need to have this match happen at all? Why not just do whatever he's going? If he believes Joey Ryan, takes him at his word in that meeting, why not just go out and do exactly what you're going to do next, whatever that might be? So the whole thing, it's very, very rare for Lucha Underground to swerve so dramatically in what I would argue is maybe not the greatest direction, but It feels like maybe this was a bit of a shortcut. I mean, it all seemed to make so much sense, and then maybe it was just cut for time. But I think that's a real shame. I think this is the type of scenario that Lucha Underground can that makes Lucha Underground so unique.
Oh my God, bro, he could have killed her.
One of the things I was hoping was going to happen here is that we would, that this might lead, should Sexy Star win, this might lead to some continuation of that spider situation. Maybe she sees Reyes or recognizes him as Cortez, gives him a shake. Why the spiders? He's like, I had nothing to do with the spiders. And then maybe that might lead to somebody else, somebody watching from afar, some kind of an illusion or some foreshadowing that story would continue. But I cannot help but think that spider thing is just dead in the water. Same thing with those pictures. The pictures that were given to Dario and the spiders. Both of those don't quite seem like they're coming back, do they? I mean, this was episode 31. We've only got 8 episodes left. 8 episodes left? 9 episodes left? 4 of which are going to be Ultima Lucha. I don't see those birds coming home to roost. Anyways, let's move on to something more positive. Dario and Johnny Mundo in Dario's office. Love the scene, of course. I mean, anything with Dario is amazing. We say it all the time. We sound like a broken record. This is great, of course, because this situation is something that I'm surprised doesn't come up in wrestling more often. Because you have those characters that are presented all the time as the bookers or quote unquote GMs, and when a GM or a booker books a match, right, and then promotes it and builds to it, isn't that ripe for a storyline for one of those wrestlers to suddenly refuse to do it or to threaten to refuse to do it until some demand is made? Now, in this scene, things resolved pretty quickly. I think this was really just a forum for a couple of things. One, that the agent is still around, and two, that Dario had banned everybody from ringside, including the Worldwide Underground, thank God. But it seems like a great dynamic because the wrestler, especially a heel wrestler, suddenly has all the leverage, right? He's threatening not just his opponent by threatening to defeat him, but he's threatening the promotion, the person in charge, by walking out and ruining the match. So I thought that was a great dynamic. Would love to see stuff like that utilized more often to get things, just what a great way to get some last second heat, I think, on somebody. Also a great way if you suddenly wanted to add some sort of handicap stipulation or something like that. I mean, a promoter's hands are tied, right? Because you can't just walk. Because people will be upset. Also have to give some great props to the. I really feel like this was like a smart mark wink, a wink to all the smart marks on the internet and things like that, all the whiners, when the agent specifically referred to Sexy Star as the worst champion in history, end of quote. And then Dario immediately was like, well, I don't know about that. I don't think that's true, right? Does not just seem like a direct response to all of the nonsense that we hear about Sexy Star. I mean, honestly, we hear about it on this podcast sometimes. We do. But with Travis not being here, we can go into full Sexy Star positivity mode, okay? Although, to be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about her Natalia situation. But anyways, I'm sure it's not entirely her fault. Also, my God, in episode 31, you get that one shot of Sexy Star just like wrapping up her hand wraps. Yowza. Sexiest Sexy Star I think I've seen. but that's just me.
Dark arts, my friend.
So we get, we do learn that everyone's banned from ringside. Oh, and some great sound effects here too from the post-production team. You know, when the agent and Johnny Mundo both whip out their sunglasses and they give them like a sword sort of unsheathing sound, like the shing, just as they're whipping out the sunglasses. I love that stuff. It's really one of the things again that makes Lucha Underground unique. They can do that sort of thing and totally get away with it. Yeah, and then so from there we go into the temple, and we've got Puma versus Pentagon. I think this might be a good time just to break for a second. I think this is going to be a shorter episode, just because a little less of back and forth, as you can tell. I think I'm also talking really fast. Maybe it's a little nerves. No safety net, no safety net. So this is a great time to talk about, to hear some things from our friends at Place to Be Nation.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlayStation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics on Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes, and while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Got to give props to Bobby C last week for the Glacier Chief Glacier in our ongoing Lucha City Nights saga. For me, this is maybe the first time I've been able to cough up the Primo Chief spot in this little exercise. I'm gonna go with Bruno Sammartino, and what happens is he comes in. He's super well respected. He's big. He's strong. He's still strong. He's Bruno Sammartino as he exists today. So he's old, but he's very strong, super well respected, a legendary police officer. People are falling over themselves to try and impress him. And then slowly, as the episode goes on, you realize that he is still behaving like it's like he's a cop in like 1959. Like he's obsessed with shutting down all the illegal stills in the city, and he's worried about exotic animals being trafficked in from China, stuff like that. And then maybe the cops are like, we're going to try and do some other stuff. And he's like, no, we're going to keep funneling all this money towards getting rid of the bootleggers. And so they have to weigh, their respect for this legendary officer, but also the fact that he is completely out of touch with with the modern world. You know what? It could also be Vince McMahon. It doesn't even have to be Bruno Sammartino. Could easily be Vince McMahon. All right, so continuing on with our episode.
Violence!
We've got Puma versus Pentagon. Man, was it just me, or at the beginning of this episode did it seem like there was a lot of very strange cuts to the crowd, cuts to Vamp, or maybe not really Vamp and Stryker, but just odd, a lot of really odd cutting at first. And I would suspect that when it first happened, I was worried. I was like, oh God, what am I about to witness? Has this been Frankenstein together for some reason? Did something go wrong? Was it, did they cut out a bunch of awkward stuff? Well, where is this match going to go? I took it at first as like, a big red flag, but actually as the match continued, I mean, this was a fantastic match. This is, I think, Pentagon Dark's best performance this season, hands down, quite possibly his best of the whole series, depending on how you feel about his death match with Vampiro. Man, what a fantastic match. And I'm guessing that those weird cuts where they kept on going to the crowd, there was like a GoPro on some fans for some reason. It was so weird. I've never seen them use that camera angle before. I don't know if somebody else was directing this episode or what was happening to that, but they must have been using those cuts early on to shave down the time. That's the only thing I can think of. But it definitely seemed a little weird and a little out of place. And man, I am glad that it wasn't a symptom of some bigger problem, because I thought this match was just absolutely fantastic. When this match was getting going too, I really began to think, like, how is Vampiro going to get involved? Like, I had just assumed, you're talking about his two disciples, right? Going in the ring, going at each other. I thought for sure this thing was going to end with some kind of Vampiro interference, or maybe not end with the Vampiro interference. I feel like they're shying away lately from interference endings, but that he would get in the ring at some point and do something. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if it was going to be for Pentagon or for Puma. Was he going to, could he get in the ring and realign with Pentagon? This would be a way to do it, right? And a big swerve to have all of this stuff with Puma just been to, weaken his resolve, or to have him lower his guard or something like that. And then, of course, you could have done it with Puma and have that sort of, cement that sort of that evil nature that Vampiro is trying to draw out of him. But to my surprise, Vamp didn't get involved at all. He comes in at the very end, raises up Puma's hand, and that's nice. But, it was great. They didn't need his presence. They decided not to, add that element to the match, and I thought that was a very restrained and smart decision. This match did not need it, and they didn't do it, and it was great. Man, a couple of great moves. There is a crossbody by Puma that is just a work of art. Cirque du Soleil stuff. I'm sure by the time the episode ends, it will be all over the wrestling Twitter. If it's not, it's a crime. People aren't paying close enough attention. Just fantastic. All one steady shot. Of course, he gets ricochet level height. It's just absurd. And Puma sells it so well, Pentagon sells it so beautifully, and then a great sort of a reversal into a small package pile driver by Pentagon. It was shot from a weird angle from behind, which I think by obscuring the action in this particular case, because you know how I feel about obscuring the action with garbage cuts, but with he grabs Puma. Turns him into a small package pile driver position, slams him down. It looks like he murdered the man because just enough of the action was obscured by Pentagon's body that in our minds, as the audience, we have to sort of piece together what happened. And of course, my mind just went to worst case scenario. This is a dead man. They're broadcasting murder on television for some reason. But of course he was fine. There's a fantastic exchange between both performers the exchange what Stryker called a Mexican destroyer, like a flipping power bomb. It all happened so fast; it's hard to sort of grasp what the move actually is. But it was beautifully delivered and sold by both men. Again, fantastic performance by Pentagon. He absolutely has risen to the occasion here. I don't want to say that Pentagon is ever phones it in. I don't believe that, but I do think there are a lot of matches when Pentagon rides his charisma and how over he is, and also as the character, he doesn't have to do a lot to remain over. A kick, a strike, an arm break, right? And so it was great to see him really start pulling out all of the his full repertoire, because we don't see it all that often. Just amazing stuff. Stryker's call on this, his voice was absolutely shredded. He was so intense. It was you could hear he was getting raspy. Vampiro was even commenting on it. It was pretty wild to hear Stryker so out of control on that. And overall, in this whole episode, actually, I didn't find Stryker or Vamp to be particularly distracting. And I think that in a lot of ways, that's the best you can ask from any wrestling commentator. Just don't be distracting. And they weren't. They were great. So Puma wins. Puma wins the Cueto Cup. It was he finishes all off with his top spinning 680. 680. I think it's a 680. You know the move I'm talking about. He hits it for the win. Mocks Pentagon as Pentagon leaves the arena with Mox Cierro Miedo chants or hand signals. Pretty absolutely great things. Vampiro comes into the ring. Now, I thought at this moment, so Vamp comes into the ring. We haven't seen Pentagon leave yet. As far as we know as an audience, Pentagon is just on the ground in the corner, still passed out, still knocked out, whatever, exhausted. Vamp comes in, raises Puma's hand. I was thinking we're getting an arm break there. That maybe Pentagon or Puma would turn around with Vampiro's suggestion, break Pentagon's arm. Damn, how hot would that have been? Anyways, doesn't happen. That's okay. Just an idea. And then, so Pentagon wanders away. We get a nice shot of him disgusted, walking back into the back, just as somebody hits the smoke machine. Gotta make you think, why does Dario have smoke machines there? Anyways, Puma has the cup at this point. Man, if anybody out there has been watching New Japan, you got to be familiar with Tetsuya Naito and the way that Naito just disrespects the belt when he has it, throws it into the air, leaves it behind, bends it, breaks it. It's just, especially for the Japanese fans, it is just it's equally endearing and shocking at the same time. Like how they love him because he's so audacious that he would be willing to do that. And when the cup itself, the physical prop of that cup is somewhat underwhelming. I think is safe to say that. And then when Puma had it in his hands, I mean, he was looking at it. He didn't seem particularly excited to have it or relieved that he won it. I thought we might see some Naito sort of disrespect of the cup. He gets it from Dario, just throws it on the ground, grabs a mic. I want the belt, something like that. I think it was sort of, and I feel that way because I think I was reading that from Puma's body language and sort of the, whatever expression we think we can read from his face. So I think there was that there. Would have loved to have seen him just punt the cup, though. Just punt it across into the crowd. Why not? You can do whatever you want with those guys. They love it. And then we go into Rey Mysterio versus Johnny Mundo for the championship. We say this all the time, but man, you go in there and you watch the way that the joy in Melissa Santos's eyes when she announces Rey Mysterio. She's been doing it from day one. She has a specific delivery for every one of these wrestlers. The way she hits her R's for this wrestler, or the way she smiles when she says this wrestler's name, or the way she has a down intonation and sort of tries to undercut the wrestler in a way. When she's announcing Marty the Moth, for example. Just the best in the business. I wish, I wish there was some way that she could be better recognized for that. I don't know if the Observer has awards for ring announcer, but if they don't, they should, and they should create it just to give it to her. We'll certainly be giving it to her for our end of year awards. I have no doubt. So Melissa announces Rey, and Rey comes out, and he is in full Lucha Underground gear. Thankfully, nothing with El Rey Network on it, although he has worn an El Rey thing in the past, but it kind of made sense, because he's the king, and that's what El Rey means, and we can sort of blur or suspend our disbelief a little bit. But this was full Lucha Underground gear that, the mask that we see on everything. We see it on the posters. We see it on people's t-shirts in the audience. We see it on Melissa Santos's microphone. I have mixed feelings about it, of course, but the more I thought about it today, and maybe it was because I was alone, I'm actually beginning to be okay with the lucha mask imagery being everywhere, because underground movements and cultures, they do organically begin to generate their own imagery and symbolism and things like that. So the more I think about it, the more, even though it does seem quite, I'll say, manufactured or maybe mass produced, I can get past it, and that's probably why I'm not quite as harsh on that as I am on when the actual El Rey Network is mentioned. But it would be great to see, again, talking to somebody who's actually making the t-shirts, or in the show, can we have a character who's responsible for the t-shirts or responsible for the printing the DVDs, something like that. I think having the t-shirts is totally cool. I don't think the Dario Cueto would have a Lucha Underground branded microphone for Melissa Santos. I'm just saying, that seems a bit extreme. And you know what? If Lucha Underground, and I'm sure that they are, if Lucha Underground, the production, is looking for ways to cut costs, I would say pull back on the branding a little bit. Let things kind of happen a little bit more organically. And I think that will speak to that will help for people to maintain their disbelief a lot more. Not that you need to maintain your disbelief with a show like this, but you know what I mean. It will help bring more consistency to the world and more logic to the proceedings. So think about things like that. You don't need to spend money on a custom microphone for Melissa Santos, right? Yeah, just a thought. The weird, Ray's gear. It was, his top was sort of that tank top sort of looking thing, and because half of it was white, it really just looked like a sweaty wife beater. It was creamy too, it wasn't like stark white. It was like creamy. Not my favorite Mysterio gear. Anyways, also, did you notice in the crowd that there were people holding up Mundo section pages? Now, you know how I feel about the section signs, Tejano Jr. section and now Mundo section. It's weird what just gets traction in the wrestling world, somehow this is one of them. I thought for a second it was actually it said Mundo suction, like Mundo sucks, like this is the Mundo suction, which I thought would be interesting because it would be like the first documented case of the section thing going like meta, but it wasn't, unfortunately. It did say Mundo section. Oh man, we gotta get rid of that section thing. That's that and the 10 count. You know how the 10 count has gone completely viral? 10, 10, 10. Good God. Can both of those please just go away? Thankfully, the what thing is finally dying. Anyways, couple of interesting moments midway through this match. We've got which I can only describe as like a middle rope, full body dragon whip by Johnny Mundo on Mysterio. It was vicious. It was unique. It looked strong. I loved it. I can't remember seeing it before. I see similar moves done to people's legs quite a bit, but never like that full body style. Loved it. Also, you gotta love Mundo tearing away at Mysterio's mask, and then while it's happening, Matt Striker has a great call in that moment because in my own thought process, his call was so good, it was like he was speaking directly to me. As Mundo's tearing away at Mysterio's mask, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I know that Mysterio has been unmasked before, so this doesn't seem like that big of a deal. And then Stryker, almost in response to my thoughts, talks about this is why Mysterio put the mask back on. This is why it's still important. This is why with Mundo tearing away at it, he's laughing in the face of like all that is holy, basically. So I love that. I thought that was such a smart decision to have that call, for Stryker to make that call in that moment, just to relay the importance of the mask, especially after the sort of unceremonious demasking of Veneno earlier. Still can't believe that happened. My God. We also had some really, at the beginning of Puma versus Pentagon, there was that really strange camera work I mentioned. Well, in this match, we had a couple of just beautiful shots. Mundo had Mysterio up for a whirlwind backbreaker that was shot directly from above. And it was so, it just added so much to the move, I felt. And then there was another great shot that was probably shot from like the, crane cam that it's like, how can I describe this? I'm sure there's a name for the move. Where is Kevin Banner when you need him? Where Mysterio jumps off the top turnbuckle onto the outside and lands on Mundo, and it's as if it was the same kind of motion as like when a swashbuckler jumps off of like the side of a castle and lands on a horse and starts to ride it away. It was like that, but it was shot from so high up and from directly behind. It just seemed like the distance. It just added so much to the distance that Mysterio got in the match, or on that move. I mean, fantastic stuff. So some really, really interesting shots in this. And so the match progresses, and of course, we get a ref bump. Oh my God. When that happened, put up your hand if you thought that was immediately going to result in a worldwide underground run-in. I did. I was so choked. Ref goes down, and my head is in my hands. Like, you cannot be kidding me. This is going to end with a worldwide underground beatdown. And it did not. Shockingly, the only other person who got involved was Mysterio's son, Dominic, who got involved, and I think illegally, right? Illegally. Because Mysterio was down. Yes, he'd been kicked in the balls, as Vampiro so eloquently stated. But he was just being, after that, I mean, he was being, kicked and whatever. I mean, he was taking strikes as a wrestler does, and he was losing, and then Dominic just rushes in to save his dad. I get it from the heart, but he was breaking the rules. You would expect Lucha Underground, and yet here's this kid Dominic. So Dominic jumps in, tangles with Johnny Mundo, gives him what looked like a spine buster, then runs away, gives an incredible elbow shot to one of the security guards who were there, and then runs away. And then this is where big question marks for me at this point, which I really don't quite understand the motivation. Somehow Mysterio gets Mundo in the pin, hits him with a 619, gets him in the pin. He's about to win the match, and then Dario of all people, pulls the ref away and then jumps into the ring, slaps Mysterio, and then Mundo hits the end of the world on Mysterio, and Mundo wins. I have no understanding of Dario's motivation here. Is it because Dominic rushed in and ruined the match? Anybody who's going to run in is supposed to be fired. Does that mean, well, Dominic wasn't on the, Dominic wasn't a wrestler, so he can't be fired. Does that mean, was that Dario firing Rey Mysterio? The crowd wasn't happy. The crowd was chanting, "This is bullshit." I don't know if it was bullshit. I think it was storytelling. I'm not sure what the story was. Dario takes a 619 in this, which I'm pretty sure is only the second bump he's ever taken. It was really, really strange. I cannot wait to see if we get some explanation of Dario's motivation for this next week, or if it's all just going to be assumed that we know what it is. When this episode ended, I had some of the biggest question marks, of any time I can remember while watching this show. Why would Dario get involved? Dario Cueto got into the ring and got his hands dirty. He got his hands dirty. Are we looking at a Dario Cueto versus Rey Mysterio Jr. match at Ultima Lucha Tres? That would be out of control. With Dominic as a special guest referee. No, that makes no sense. Okay, everybody. Well, I hope you guys had fun. Let's take a look at what the next episode's all about. 1 second. Okay, next week we've got episode 33, Havoc Running Wild. Oh, we're going back to Son of Havoc. Son of Madness and Son of Havoc's feud intensifies. Joey Ryan antagonizes Cortez Castro. Okay, well, I'm glad that we're going to get a little more of the Joey Ryan, Cortez Castro. Son of Madness, well, we all know how we feel about Son of Madness, but anything to do with Son of Havoc is always a great time. Also, guys, big news. We've been teasing it forever. What has this thing been that we've been teasing for so long? Well, starting next week, that's right, next week, we are going to be releasing episodes immediately after the television episode broadcasts. So you'll no longer have to wait until Sunday. You'll be able to catch it up with us that Wednesday night. Late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning on your way to work. whatever you like. Good people at El Rey Network have given us some access to some advanced episodes. And so, yeah, we are very excited to be able to bring that to you soon. Also, this is the end of the Cueto Cup, which means we're going to have a winner next week. I'm pretty sure we all know it's Bobby C at this point, but who knows? Trav will be back, and we will break down the final standings for you. Other than that, you can find us on social media. Just go to Twitter and search for Lucha Afterground. And other than that, that's about it. Thanks a lot for bearing with me. Just me this week. We'll be here next week.
The question is, will you join us?